Okay, so now that I have all my apples cut up, I'm going to go ahead and season it with some cinnamon sugar. I went ahead and weighed out one uncut apple. One uncut Granny Smith apple weighs about, what was it, 8.5 ounces. And the 3 cut up apples that you see here weighs about 1 pound 5 ounces. So if that gives you any idea of where you should be. So I'm not really going to measure out the cinnamon sugar. I have some cinnamon here, and then I'm going to add the sugar afterwards. If you have cinnamon sugar, in your house, obviously use that up. So that's probably enough. It didn't even register. It's less than 1/8 of an ounce. All right, and that was probably about 1/8 of an ounce. So use equal parts of cinnamon and sugar, 1/8 of an ounce, 1/8 of an ounce, and just go ahead and toss it together. It smells delicious. Now, if you want, you can obviously add other ingredients. You can make other kinds of turnovers. This is a great basic recipe, the puff pastry dough is, and this is just to help you make a really decent apple filling. I love apple turnovers, they're so good. But it's definitely one of those other labors of love because it takes so long. But if you do buy the puff pastry in the store, it's a lot quicker, obviously. Now, we're not really quite ready for this because we've got a long way to go with the dough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. If you want to make the apple filling towards the end with your last resting step, that's great too. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually melt some butter down during the last step and incorporate the apples then, or incorporate the butter with the apples at that point. Now, if you remember, I have 1 pound and 5 ounces of butter sitting on my mixer, ready to go, cut into cubes. And now the recipe that I have, it says for 1.5 ounces and 1.5 ounces of equal parts bread flour and cake flour. I don't have any cake flour on hand, but all-purpose flour is a blend. Is typically a blend of cake and bread flour, or cake and pastry, or bread and pastry flour. So we'll go ahead and just use 100% of that. So 1.5 ounces, 1.5 ounces, that comes to about 3 ounces. So go ahead and weigh out 3 ounces of all-purpose flour. And let's go ahead and bring this over to the mixer. Okay, go ahead and add your flour to your butter. Okay, it looks like we're ready to go. You don't really want to super beat the butter to the point where it's so soft, because then you'll have to refrigerate it before you can work with it. So we're just trying to incorporate the flour and the butter together, so that way it makes an easier product to work with than just straight butter. Now you can use margarine. Just be aware that you can't really use Country Crock or any of the margarine that's super soft already. You have to use something that has some stiffness to it. Same thing goes for shortening. You can't really use a super soft shortening, because when you roll it out, it's just going to ooze out the sides and it's going to be a nightmare. And trust me, I know this from experience. So let's go ahead and bring this back over to the table. Okay, turn out your butter onto a piece of parchment paper. You can do it straight on the table, but I'm doing it on a piece of parchment paper so that way it's transportable if I need to move, which I will. So I recommend working on parchment paper. And just need your butter together a little bit if there's any crumbs left over anywhere. Don't knead it too much because the heat of your hands is going to melt it. Okay. So what we're going to do is we want it to shape it into a square. So go ahead and just push it down with your hands, it's fine. And create probably about ½ an inch high on all sides. I had a chef in one of my classes. He was so into working with butter, I guess, that he must have spent like 40 minutes shaping butter, like no joke. He would sit here and like, he had, I think he was using a bench scraper even, and it was like perfectly even and a perfect square. Like I bet you, he didn't even use a ruler, but I bet you if you measured it, it came out to exactly where it needed to be. And it was like, you know, when you're a student in the class, you're kind of like, okay, I get the point. Shape the butter, I got it. So. Now my hand is warming up the butter quite a bit, so I'm going to have to refrigerate it anyway before we can work with it. Okay, and we'll probably work with it some more when we put it on top of the dough too. So go ahead and put this in the refrigerator and allow it to cool off so it can stiffen up again.